In October 2024, a small Mississippi community was forever changed when 36-year-old Zikoya Johnson Echols was found unresponsive in her vehicle with a gunshot wound to her abdomen. What began as an ordinary day ended in tragedy, leaving 2 children without their mother and a community searching for answers. Zikoya wasn't just another statistic in a true crime documentary. She was a devoted nurse whose hands had comforted countless patients through their most vulnerable moments. Born and raised in Foxworth, Mississippi, she embodied the warmth and resilience characteristic of her hometown. Her colleagues described her as exceptionally attentive, the kind of healthcare professional who remembered not just medical charts, but the small personal details that made patients feel truly cared for. "She had this gift," said a former colleague who wished to remain anonymous. "Zikoya could walk into a room and immediately put people at ease. That's not something you can teach in nursing school. Either you have it or you don't." And she definitely had it. Her professional dedication mirrored her approach to motherhood. As a mother of 2, Zikoya structured her life around her children's needs while balancing the demands of her nursing career. Friends noted that despite her busy schedule, she never missed important moments in her children's lives. School plays, sports events, parent-teacher conferences, Zikoya was present for all of them, often arriving straight from a night shift, exhausted but determined to support her family. Her marriage to 50-year-old Kenrod Cortez Echols spanned over 7 years. Neighbors described them as a normal couple, visible in the community but private about their home life. The age difference between them rarely drew attention. They seemed to complement each other in ways that made sense to those who knew them. Kenrod was quieter, more reserved, while Zikoya brought energy and warmth to their dynamic. "They seemed happy enough," a neighbor commented. "You'd see them together at community events, church functions, that sort of thing. Nothing ever stood out as unusual." Yet behind closed doors, their relationship may have held complexities invisible to outsiders. What would later emerge through investigation painted a different picture of their life together, one that would shock those who thought they knew the couple well. In her community, Zikoya was known for more than her professional contributions. She actively participated in local health initiatives, occasionally volunteering at free clinics. Her commitment extended beyond her immediate family to the broader community, where she advocated for better healthcare access in rural Mississippi areas. "She understood the challenges facing healthcare in communities like ours," explained a community health organizer. Zikoya was realistic about what needed to change and passionate about making those changes happen. The morning of October 26th began like any other for Zikoya. She left home in her car, a routine departure for someone whose life revolved around family and work responsibilities. Hours later, emergency services would discover her vehicle crashed into a building on Park Place Avenue in Hattiesburg. The initial assessment of an accident quickly transformed into something much more disturbing when first responders discovered the gunshot wound. What forces converged to end the life of this compassionate caregiver? What transformed an ordinary morning into a final goodbye? The story of Zikoya Johnson Echols raises uncomfortable questions about intimacy, jealousy, and violence. Questions that demand answers not just for legal closure, but for the community healing process. Before we continue with this investigation, if you found this account compelling so far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring attention to cases like Zikoya's that might otherwise fade from public memory. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on new documentaries that examine the human stories behind the headlines. Now let's return to the events of October 26, 2024, the day that would forever alter the trajectory of multiple lives and expose a deadly secret. Saturday, October 26, 2024, began with the ordinary rhythms of weekend life in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. For Zikoya Johnson Echols, it was supposed to be a morning like any other. Security footage from a neighboring property captured her leaving her residence at approximately 9:30 a.m. She wore nursing scrubs, suggesting she may have been headed to work or a professional engagement. This mundane departure would become the final time Zikoya was seen alive by anyone other than her attacker. According to phone records, later obtained by investigators, Zikoya made her last phone call at 9:34 a.m. The 4-minute conversation with a colleague discussed schedule adjustments for the upcoming week. The colleague would later tell police that nothing in Zikoya's tone indicated distress or concern. Their conversation was purely professional and ended with Zikoya saying she'd see them on Monday. What happened in the following 26 minutes remains the subject of intense forensic analysis. Based on physical evidence and subsequent confessions, investigators established that Zikoya returned home unexpectedly after forgetting important documents. What she encountered upon her return altered the course of multiple lives forever. At approximately 9:50 a.m., neighbors reported hearing a loud bang from the direction of the Echols residence. None called emergency services, as the sound wasn't immediately identified as gunfire. One neighbor initially dismissed it as a car backfiring or something falling. This critical delay meant that for crucial minutes, no emergency response was initiated. According to the official reconstruction of events, Zikoya sustained a single gunshot wound to her abdomen inside her home. Despite the severity of her injury, she managed to reach her vehicle and attempt to drive away, likely in search of medical assistance. Her decision to flee rather than call emergency services from home adds another layer of complexity to the case, suggesting she may have feared additional violence. At 10 a.m., multiple 911 calls flooded the Hattiesburg emergency dispatch. Callers reported a vehicle that had veered off Park Place Avenue and crashed into the side of a small commercial building approximately 1.2 miles from the Echols residence. First responders arrived within 4 minutes to find a silver sedan embedded in the building's exterior wall. Officer Marcus Daniels was first on the scene. "I immediately noticed the driver was unresponsive," he stated in his official report. "Upon closer inspection, I observed blood on her clothing that didn't appear consistent with injuries from the collision." When paramedics arrived, they quickly identified the gunshot wound as the primary medical concern rather than any injuries sustained in the crash. Despite their immediate efforts, Zikoya was pronounced dead at the scene at 10:17 a.m. The official cause of death would later be confirmed as blood loss resulting from the gunshot wound. Within 30 minutes of the discovery, the Hattiesburg Police Department transformed the crash site into a protected crime scene. Yellow tape established a perimeter extending 100 feet in all directions from the vehicle. Forensic technicians documented the scene with hundreds of photographs, marking blood patterns, tire tracks, and the vehicle's position relative to the building. The unexpected nature of the case, what initially appeared to be a traffic accident, revealing itself as something far more serious, prompted authorities to implement comprehensive evidence collection protocols. Officers canvassed the surrounding area for witnesses and security footage that might have captured Zikoya's vehicle during its final journey. By noon, investigators had traced the vehicle's likely route from the Echols residence to the crash site. Blood evidence inside the car indicated that Zikoya was already wounded when she began driving. The absence of a weapon in the vehicle or at the crash site directed police attention back to her residence. At 12:45 p.m., officers arrived at the Echols home to find Kenrod Cortez Echols sitting on the front steps. When asked about his wife's whereabouts, his response would forever change the direction of the investigation. "I think I've done something terrible." The moment Kenrod Cortez Echols uttered his ambiguous confession, the Hattiesburg Police Department mobilized a multi-agency response. A search warrant for the Echols residence was obtained within hours, allowing forensic teams to begin their meticulous examination of the property. Inside the home, investigators discovered a disturbing tableau. Blood spatter patterns in the living room indicated that the shooting occurred during a confrontational stance between two individuals. A 9mm handgun registered to Kenrod was recovered from beneath a sofa cushion, an apparent attempt to conceal the weapon. Ballistics experts would later confirm this firearm as the one used in the shooting. The blood evidence told us exactly where Ms. Echols stood when she was shot, explained Detective Lisa Washington, lead investigator on the case. The spatter patterns, droplet trajectory, and pooling all aligned with the theory that she was shot during a face-to-face encounter with her assailant. Particularly telling was the blood trail that led from the living room to the front door and driveway. This physical evidence supported the hypothesis that Zikoya, despite her wound, had managed to exit the house and reach her vehicle, a remarkable feat considering the severity of her injury. Meanwhile, at the Mississippi State Crime Laboratory in Biloxi, Dr. Raymond Jeffers conducted the autopsy. His examination revealed that a single medium-caliber bullet had entered Zikoya's abdomen, causing catastrophic damage to major blood vessels. The resulting internal hemorrhage was determined to be the primary cause of death. The wound characteristics indicated the shot was fired from approximately 3 to 5 feet away, Dr. Jeffers noted in his report. There were no defensive wounds on the victim's hands or arms, suggesting she may not have anticipated the attack. Toxicology reports showed no substances in Zikoya's system beyond therapeutic levels of common over-the-counter medications, eliminating any speculation about impairment affecting her actions or judgment. Her final moments had been lived in full, tragic clarity. The investigation required precise coordination between the Hattiesburg Police Department, the Lamar County Sheriff's Office, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, and the State Crime Lab. Daily briefings kept all agencies aligned on case developments, evidence processing priorities, and investigative leads. This level of coordination is essential in cases crossing jurisdictional boundaries, explained Captain Jerome Powell of the Hattiesburg PD. The victim's residence was in one jurisdiction while the crash site was in another. Without cohesive communication, critical details could have been overlooked. On October 27th, investigators conducted a formal interview with Kenrod Cortez Echols. After being advised of his Miranda rights, Kenrod provided a full confession that aligned with the physical evidence already collected. According to his statement, he had returned home unexpectedly to find Zikoya dancing with a male colleague in their living room. What began as a simple social interaction escalated when Kenrod misinterpreted the situation, explained District Attorney Eleanor Michaels. By his own admission, he retrieved his firearm from the bedroom and confronted the pair. The male visitor fled, and during the subsequent argument, Kenrod fired a single shot at his wife. The confession included details only the shooter could have known, including the exact placement of the weapon after the incident. Cell phone records corroborated Kenrod's timeline, showing he had indeed left work early that morning, contrary to his initial claim of being at his workplace during the shooting. This thorough investigation highlights the dedication of law enforcement agencies working to bring justice to victims of domestic violence. If you believe this type of detailed reporting on true crime cases provides valuable insights into both human behavior and our justice system, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps us continue covering these important stories that inform and educate our community about the realities of domestic violence. Share your thoughts in the comment section below about how communities can better identify warning indicators before situations escalate to violence. At 50 years old, Kenrod Cortez Echols presented himself as an unremarkable figure in Hattiesburg. Neighbors described him as reserved and private, a man who went to work, came home, and rarely engaged in community activities. His employment history showed steady work at a local manufacturing plant where he had maintained the same position for over a decade. Former coworkers characterized Kenrod as intensely private about his personal life. He'd participate in work conversations but never shared much about his home situation, said one colleague who requested anonymity. When he did mention Zikoya, there was always this underlying tone of possessiveness in how he spoke about her. This possessiveness, barely perceptible to casual acquaintances, manifested more clearly in the couple's domestic life. Friends of Zikoya later revealed instances where Kenrod displayed controlling behaviors, checking her phone, questioning her whereabouts, and expressing discomfort with her male colleagues. These behaviors, while concerning in retrospect, had never escalated to physical violence prior to October 26th. The age gap between Kenrod and Zikoya, 14 years, created what some described as a power imbalance in their relationship. He sometimes treated her more like a prized possession than a partner, explained a family friend. There was always this sense that he couldn't quite believe someone like her would be with someone like him. The incident that ultimately triggered the fatal violence centered on a profound misinterpretation. According to Kenrod's confession, he returned home unexpectedly that Saturday morning after forgetting important documents. Upon entering, he discovered Zikoya and a male colleague practicing a choreographed dance for an upcoming hospital fundraiser. His statement indicates he immediately assumed infidelity, explained Detective Washington. Despite Zikoya's explanations and the presence of written choreography notes on the coffee table, Kenrod perceived the situation as betrayal rather than the innocent rehearsal it actually was. The male colleague, whose identity remains protected by authorities, fled the scene when Kenrod retrieved his firearm. This left Zikoya alone to face her husband's rage, a confrontation that ended with a single fatal gunshot. Following the shooting, Kenrod's actions revealed a disturbing mix of panic and calculation. Rather than calling emergency services, he attempted to hide the weapon under sofa cushions and initially fled the scene. Surveillance footage captured him driving aimlessly around Hattiesburg for approximately 90 minutes before returning home. During this period, he made no calls to emergency services or attempts to check on Zikoya's condition. When questioned about this later, he simply stated, "I knew what I had done. There was no taking it back." Upon his arrest at 20 p.m. on October 26th, Kenrod faced immediate charges of first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and malicious mischief. The murder charge reflected the prosecution's belief that the shooting, while perhaps not premeditated in advance, involved the deliberate decision to retrieve a weapon during an argument, indicating intent rather than impulse. The additional charges stemmed from his attempt to conceal the weapon and the property damage resulting from Zikoya's vehicle crash, which prosecutors argued was a direct consequence of his actions. At his arraignment on October 28th, Kenrod appeared before Judge Harrison Mills in Forest County Court. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Eleanor Michaels, requested denial of bail, citing flight risk and the severity of the charges. After hearing arguments from both sides, Judge Mills set bail at a combined $800,000, $750,000 for the murder charge and $25,000 each for the remaining charges. This bail amount reflects both the seriousness of the alleged crimes and acknowledgement of the defendant's limited resources, Judge Mills explained. It ensures public safety while respecting the presumption of innocence our legal system demands. Unable to post this substantial amount, Kenrod remains in custody at Forest County Jail as his case proceeds toward trial. The legal machinery activated by Zikoya Johnson Echols' death involves multiple charges against Kenrod Cortez Echols, each carrying distinct implications for his future. The primary charge, first-degree murder, requires prosecutors to demonstrate that Kenrod acted with malice aforethought, even if the decision to kill formed moments before the act. Mississippi law distinguishes between premeditated murder and killings that occur in the heat of passion, explained legal analyst Professor Diane Keller from the University of Southern Mississippi. The prosecution's decision to pursue first-degree murder charges suggests they believe Kenrod's actions, specifically retrieving the firearm during an argument, showed deliberate intent, rather than impulsive reaction. The tampering with evidence charge stems from Kenrod's attempt to conceal the weapon after the shooting. While seemingly secondary to the murder charge, this offense carries up to 5 years in prison and indicates consciousness of guilt, a powerful component of the prosecution's narrative. The third charge, malicious mischief, addresses the property damage resulting from Zikoya's vehicle crash. Though technically the least severe charge, it connects Kenrod's actions directly to consequences beyond Zikoya's death, potentially increasing his overall sentencing exposure. Currently, the case moves through pretrial procedures with a trial date anticipated for early 2025. The defense team, led by Public Defender Martin Coleman, has filed motions challenging the admissibility of certain evidence, including portions of Kenrod's initial statements to police. These standard procedural maneuvers suggest the defense may pursue a strategy focusing on Kenrod's mental state rather than disputing the basic facts. The defense appears to be laying groundwork for an argument centered on diminished capacity or extreme emotional disturbance, noted courthouse reporter Jamal Washington. They're not contesting that he fired the shot, but rather questioning whether his emotional state permits a first-degree murder conviction. The prosecution's strategy leverages three primary evidence categories: forensic findings from both the residence and crash site, Kenrod's confession, and testimony from the male colleague present during the confrontation. District Attorney Eleanor Michaels has assigned a team of 4 prosecutors to the case, signaling the office's commitment to securing a conviction. Our approach centers on demonstrating the deliberate nature of Mr. Echols' actions. Michaels stated during a press conference, "The evidence will show a clear timeline from perceived grievance to lethal action, with multiple opportunities for the defendant to make different choices." This case raises broader questions about how the justice system handles domestic violence. Advocates note that cases like Zikoya's often reveal patterns of controlling behavior that escalate to physical violence. They question whether current legal frameworks adequately address early warning behaviors before they culminate in tragedy. What's particularly troubling in domestic homicide cases is that the legal system often becomes involved only after irreversible harm occurs, explained Dr. Theresa Manning, who heads a domestic violence prevention program. We need mechanisms that respond effectively to controlling behaviors before they escalate to physical violence. The community's reaction to the legal proceedings has been multifaceted. While universal sympathy exists for Zikoya's children, opinions about appropriate justice vary widely. Some community members advocate for maximum penalties, while others express concern about the impact of incarceration on the family's financial stability. Local churches have organized court attendance programs, ensuring Zikoya's supporters maintain visible presence throughout proceedings. These attendance efforts serve both to honor her memory and to silently remind the court of the community's investment in the outcome. "We're here because justice matters," explained Reverend Timothy Jackson of Greater Hope Baptist Church. "Not just legal justice, but the deeper justice of acknowledging a life wrongfully taken and ensuring our community learns from this tragedy to prevent future loss." In the aftermath of Zikoya Johnson Echols' death, her family faces the impossible task of rebuilding shattered lives. Her parents, who still reside in Foxworth, Mississippi, have temporarily relocated to Hattiesburg to care for their grandchildren, now motherless and effectively fatherless, as Kenrod awaits trial. "No parent should outlive their child," Zikoya's father stated during a brief press interaction. "And certainly no parent should have to explain to grandchildren why mommy isn't coming home because daddy hurt her." The psychological impact on Zikoya's children, ages 8 and 11, remains a primary concern for both family members and mental health professionals. School counselors report the children have withdrawn socially, with academic performance suffering despite supportive interventions. Children who lose parents to domestic homicide face unique challenges, explained child psychologist Dr. Amelia Hernandez, who specializes in trauma counseling. They're processing not only loss and grief, but also betrayal by a trusted caregiver. This compounds their trauma in ways that require specialized long-term support. Extended family members have established a rotating schedule, ensuring the children maintain consistent routines while receiving necessary emotional support. Aunts, uncles, and cousins take turns assisting with homework, attending school functions, and maintaining holiday traditions, providing stability amid profound disruption. The Hattiesburg community has demonstrated remarkable solidarity through practical support initiatives. A meal delivery program ensures the family receives home-cooked dinners 6 days weekly. Local businesses collected donations covering 6 months of mortgage payments for the family home, allowing the children to remain in familiar surroundings. Memorial services for Zikoya transcended traditional funeral observances. Beyond the formal service attended by hundreds of community members, nursing colleagues organized a candlelight vigil at Forest General Hospital, where Zikoya had worked. They established a nursing scholarship in her name, awarded annually to students committed to compassionate patient care. Zikoya's professional hallmark. This scholarship ensures that Zikoya's approach to nursing continues influencing patient care long into the future, explained the hospital's chief nursing officer. Each recipient will learn her story and carry forward her legacy of exceptional compassion. Her death has catalyzed difficult but necessary community conversations about domestic violence. Local advocacy groups report increased information requests following media coverage of the case. The Hattiesburg Police Department has expanded its domestic violence response training for officers, incorporating lessons from this case into their protocols. We're seeing community members asking better questions about healthy relationships, noted Gabrielle Thompson, director of a local family resource center. People want to understand how controlling behaviors differ from care, how to recognize concerning patterns in their own relationships, and how to support friends showing signs of relationship distress. Several local faith communities have established support groups for those experiencing controlling relationships, creating safe spaces for honest conversation without judgment. These groups emphasize early recognition of problematic dynamics before violence occurs. The most meaningful aspect of Zikoya's legacy may be the changing community attitudes toward domestic violence. What was once considered private family business is increasingly recognized as a community health issue requiring collective response. Zikoya's professional life was dedicated to healing, reflected a former colleague. If her death leads to healthier relationships and families in our community, that healing work continues, even though she's gone. As this documentary concludes, we invite you to contribute to positive change. Please like and subscribe to support our continued coverage of these critical issues. Share this video to extend its reach and impact. Most importantly, familiarize yourself with domestic violence resources in your community and be prepared to offer support when needed. The most fitting tribute to Zikoya Johnson Echols isn't found in memorials or scholarships, but in lives saved through timely intervention, support, and education. Her story reminds us that lasting change requires both individual awareness and community action.